Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into Reddit in Moderation, the podcast where we talk to subreddit moderators to see what they and their community are all about. This week, we are joined by a moderator of r/cryptocurrency user jwinterm to discuss everything related to cryptocurrency. I just wanted to provide a brief disclaimer. My guest and I are in no way, shape, or form financial advisors. All financial opinions of ours should not be taken into consideration while making your own financial decisions. Also, before we get into the interview, I just want to briefly define cryptocurrency and why I think it's worthy of discussion. As defined by Oxford Languages on a brief Google search, a cryptocurrency is a digital currency in which transactions are verified and records are maintained by a decentralized system using cryptography rather than a centralized authority such as our US minted dollars. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency created in 2009 by an anonymous developer known as Satoshi Nakamoto. Since then, the value of Bitcoin has gone up astronomically, and there are now a plethora of cryptocurrencies to invest in, such as Ethereum, Cardano, Doge, and etc. It keeps going on. It's important that we talk about crypto because it is now more relevant than ever before and holds the potential to become the leading form of currency. With that being said, I would like to introduce our guest, moderator of r/cryptocurrency, John Winter, aka jwinterm. Thank you for being with us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. So anyways, I just wanted to briefly discuss yourself. So I just want to know what do you do and where you call?
Where do I call home?
Oh, where are you calling from? Like just, in general, like in the United States.
I'm sitting in my basement in the Philadelphia suburbs. And what do I do? Until recently, I was an engineer. I worked for 6 years at Lawrence Livermore National Lab after I got my PhD from UT Dallas. And then I worked briefly for a company called Holtec in Camden, New Jersey, which makes basically giant nuclear trash cans. And then I left that company in May, and I've recently started a company with a few other folks from California called patron.me. That's PATRN.me, which is a new kind of like NFT platform. And kind of the unique twist is that we do like crowdfunding for NFTs.
Oh man, that's super cool, and totally relevant to our conversation because I definitely want to touch on NFTs later, and then we'll definitely like plug your company in the bio for the podcast later on too.
Cool.
And I'm a huge fan of basements, by the way. Here in California, we don't have any basements, because
and I lived in California before I moved back here. Livermore is like outside of Oakland, more or less, and I lived in Texas before that, and there's no basements in Texas either. But I'm from Delaware originally, and now I'm back in the region, so I have my nice dungeon office down here.
I'm so jealous. They're just I don't know what it is. It's just something so comfy about it, like you're just like safe from like hurricanes, tornadoes, zombie apocalypses. Like I don't know. I'm just a big basement fan. I got to do a interview for r/basements afterwards or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, so how did you get into cryptocurrency?
So when I was in grad school, I kind of got onto IRC, which is Internet Relay Chat, which is like old school internet chat, goes back to like the 1990s.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've never even heard of it. I've heard of like AIM and stuff like that, but never
I think it's probably older than AIM. And like I had this guy who like he was like a research professor, advisor guy, who was like kind of pushing me towards some open source tools, like rather than using MATLAB, maybe use new Octave or use Python, and rather than use Windows, maybe try and use Linux. And So like, I mean, the kind of the support network for those kind of tools existed on IRC. And I just was like kind of fooling around on IRC, and in late 2013, I guess, one of the, I kind of like came out of nowhere, but quickly became one of the biggest channels on Freenode, which was the largest IRC network, was Dogecoin.
Mm.
So I was like talking to the people on the IRC, and it was fun. And I tried mining with my crappy laptops that I had lying around. And I kind of quickly got hooked and bought a bunch of graphics cards early next year and started mining all kinds of random coins in my garage in Texas, and participating in the Reddit cryptocurrency, as well as like Bitcoin talk, and joining lots of chats on IRC and other places and stuff.
So what year was this roughly?
It was right when Dogecoin launched, which was like the end of 2013.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so you've been in the game for a while, because mostly, crypto started getting big around like probably around then actually, because it started.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the first bubble, I guess, where Bitcoin went up to like $1,000 at the end of 2013.
Yeah. I started investing in Bitcoin during its first crash. I think that was around like 2018 or something like that. So like,
I mean, it crashed after that as well.
yeah, of course.
Times,
Of course. It was just I bought right like initially when it started crashing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get like a fire sale. And then like it just kept going. I'm like, oh no. But I'm one of those people that I don't, I like to hold on for, dear life. I'm a hodler. So I kept it, and I've seen it really has gone up quite a bit. What is your like your strategy? Like, do you like to hold, or are you more active?
I am not much of a trader, to be honest. I used to trade more in the past, like pre 2017, I guess. And then I guess after I had been working, so I took the position at the Livermore lab in early 2015. So as a postdoc, and probably after I was there for a year or so, I kind of just decided, I mean, I probably had like 50 coins or something at that point, like a lot, and I just consolidated down to a much smaller number and kind of just didn't worry about trying to catch every wave and ride, everything, and just, pick the coins that I was really more of a true believer in, and just not worry about it as much.
Yeah. So you were saying you invested in like 50 different types of coins, is what you're saying?
I mean, I used to mine all kinds of stuff. So I would have stuff that I mined, and then I would trade around a little bit. Yeah. So I had all kinds of different coins.
Can you explain like the mining process for our listeners? Because a lot of people get confused about that. They think, that you're actually like physically like mining or doing something on your computer. So
yeah, it's more or less just, I mean, the three words that explain it is proof of work, right? You have to prove that you are expending energy, right? Because like the physics definition of work is energy expended. So how do you do that? You use what are called hash functions, where it's basically like a mathematical function where you can input any data and it spits out a big number that's like 128 digits long or something. And in order to like successfully mine a block, then for like Bitcoin, for instance, the first 50 digits in that number have to be zeros. Like the number that comes out of the hash function, which is totally random, has to be below a certain value in order to be a like legitimate block that can be added to the blockchain. And the way that they generate these block candidates, I guess, is they take all of the transactions that people want to make in that block and the timestamp, and they run it through the hash function with what's called a nonce, which is just kind of a random number. And if it doesn't meet the target, if it's not below that threshold, the difficulty threshold, then they just change the nonce to the next number, which will completely change the output of the hash function. So like whatever you put into the hash function, if you change one little thing, the output is completely different. So they just, Bitcoin, the network on Bitcoin creates an insane number of hashes per second. Like the number of the miners, it's like, the number doesn't even have a name, that it's so large at this point. But all the proof of work blockchains operate on the same principle. Like the miners are taking all the transactions and the timestamp and the block number, and then this random number that they call the nonce. They run it through the hash function. If it meets that difficulty target, then they broadcast it to the network and say, hey, I found the block, add it to the blockchain, and they check and make sure it's legitimate. And if it's not, if it doesn't meet that difficulty target, then they change the nonce and they hash it again. And they do that, millions or billions of times per second, each miner. So I guess that's as best of explanation as I can give in it.
Yeah, no, that was a good explanation, because if you weren't able to give one, mine was going to be super elementary and probably inaccurate. So that sounded very good to me. And that's why you were saying that you you were buying graphics cards and stuff like that, and you had computers with good graphics cards, because those are the ones that are better at solving these algorithms, right?
Yeah, at that point, even in 2013, there were already ASICs for Bitcoin, which means application specific integrated circuits. So those are basically silicon chips that are manufactured for the sole purpose of mining Bitcoin.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, so like when Bitcoin launched in 2009, you could mine it with a CPU, just like your CPU in any computer. And then after a couple of years, people figured out how to mine it with graphics cards with the GPU, which is like much more efficient than the CPU. And then, shortly after that, they used FPGAs, which are like reprogrammable silicon. And then shortly after that, they started mining with ASICs. I think the first ASIC was in 2012, maybe. So once ASICs came out for Bitcoin, you could not mine Bitcoin with any reasonable return with even a graphics card or a CPU. But there's hundreds of other cryptocurrencies that you could mine. They tried to use different proof of work algorithms to like allow people to still participate in mining from their home computers. Yeah,
and then there's also proof of stake that I wanted to kind of talk about with you later on when we talk more about crypto in depth. Right now I actually just kind of want to before we get too in depth with mining and everything, I just want to talk about kind of the coins that you're investing in again, because we kind of got onto a tangent about the mining. But you were saying initially you invested in like 50, but then you kind of narrowed it down to a smaller amount. So like what coins like now are you investing in or mining?
I haven't mined anything for a number of years now. But the coins that I hold is primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum. And besides that, I have some Monero. That's probably the next largest holding that I have, which is a community that I was involved with by mining, as well as I did some other stuff with Monero people. And I developed some very crappy applications for Monero. And I have some Decred, and I have some Nano, I have some Tezos, And I have some Monero, which is a fork of Monero that I launched in 2018. So I have to have some of the coin created myself.
Yeah, you better.
But besides that, I think that's mostly it. But primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum, and a little bit to a lesser extent Monero.
Cool. Yeah. So why don't we touch on those three? First, what would you say are like the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Because those are the top two cryptos on the market right now.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Bitcoin is, of course, the oldest cryptocurrency, and it's kind of got the most trust built up behind it. And I think it's kind of, I guess what is like the real value proposition of cryptocurrency? And ultimately it comes down to that it's a decentralized system that no one person or country or anything really has control over, right?
Yeah, I agree with that too.
So I think Bitcoin has the strongest argument that it is the most decentralized coin.
Because we're still arguing over who even like created it too. With Satoshi Nakamoto, like no one actually knows who that person is or if they're still invested in it or anything.
Yeah, it's like that's like that in itself is kind of like unrepeatable. Like it's to some extent unrepeatable. So yeah, it's it's number one since forever, and I think it's got a good argument about why it's going to remain number one in terms of decentralization. And Ethereum is more versatile, and in terms of being able to create so-called smart contracts, where people can do decentralized lending or borrowing, or as well as like stuff like NFTs, like tokens that can represent ownership in something. Which Bitcoin, you can do NFTs on Bitcoin as well, but I mean, Ethereum has a bit more capability in terms of that stuff. And Ethereum is currently secured by proof of work, but it's scheduled or planned to switch to so-called proof of stake, where the mining doesn't happen anymore by proof of work, but it is the chain security is done by people who hold the coin rather than people who expend energy to secure the network. So that's a big differentiator as well. And it's very hard to do that. Like there's been a million proof of stake coins and a million different variations on it. And it's hard to get right in terms of how do you do that in a way that the system is not able to be gamed, and like demonstrate that as clearly as you can for proof of work.
Yeah. Why do you think that the system is more easily to be gamed? Is it because people that invest more or that stake more, they have the ability to manipulate the market more, or like?
Well, I guess the simplest is that like it doesn't, if there's no penalties, then it doesn't cost validators anything to propose two different, possible blocks. So, whereas in Bitcoin, you're spending energy to propose a new block. With proof of stake, you don't have to expend any energy. You could propose an infinite number of different blocks, and it doesn't cost you anything. So you could, propose that you spend money to one person in one block and propose you spend money to another person in another, and it doesn't cost you anything to do that. Whereas if you're a miner in Bitcoin, you can't do that without expending energy on both of those different forks. I guess that's kind of a simple explanation, and I'm not super well versed in all of the intricacies of proof of stake, but I mean, it's taken Ethereum forever to really get to the point where they fork the proof of stake, and they
Yeah.
have a lot of smart people working on it. So just
Mhm.
based on that, I think you can kind of understand that there's issues. And I mean, there's papers published by Bitcoin people going back, 5 or 6 years on what are the problems with proof of stake. And one of those problems is what I was describing is called the nothing at stake problem. Like it
Mm,
doesn't cost you anything to propose different possible histories of the blockchain.
that's true. That's true. Um, Now, when Ethereum does switch to proof of stake, I know that there's going to be like Ethereum 2.0. So is it going to be like a hard fork where it becomes like a whole different cryptocurrency, or is it like a soft fork where they kind of like just rebrand themselves and like, you know,
It'll be a hard fork. I mean, a hard fork means that anybody who doesn't update will get kicked off of the network. I mean, that's kind
mm,
of the definition. So it will be a hard fork, but I expect everybody would, well, everybody except for the miners, maybe, yes, who are going to get kicked off the network, will be on board with it. But yeah,
that's
I
true.
mean, technically speaking, it will be a hard fork. And Ethereum hard forks fairly regularly, probably at least once a year, I think. So I mean, I think all of the exchanges and all of the pretty much all of the big holders and stuff are all ready to update and are on board with that.
Yeah, I think most people are interested in it, myself included. I think it'll be, I mean, what you're scaring about the manipulation and, like the low amount of, risk that people take, or not risk, but, they don't have to put anything into it to mine it or to stake it compared to Bitcoin. That raises a little bit of concern for me. But otherwise, I'm excited because it's supposed to make, the system more efficient and have, hopefully less of a carbon um, impact as well, because I know Bitcoin actually, takes a lot of energy to mine and everything, and we'll talk about that more in a minute too. But can you talk to me about the third cryptocurrency that you normally invest in?
So Monero is a coin that launched in spring of 2014. And actually, Monero is probably the only other coin in the top 100 for sure. I think that the creator of the coin is anonymous. Nobody knows who created Monero, which is a
Mm,
fork of Bytecoin, which is kind of a scam. Nobody knows who created Bytecoin either, really. And Monero's kind of unique value proposition is that um, that transactions and your kind of account history are all untraceable. So
mhm.
it's a quote unquote privacy coin. And it achieves that by using technology called ring signatures and stealth addresses. Um, and I'm not like a huge privacy geek. I mean, I'm on here talking to
Yeah.
you, so maybe
That's true.
it's not really. But when it launched,
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of one side of it. Is that it was really kind of revolutionary when it launched, in terms of, because with Bitcoin or especially with Ethereum, it's very easy to see all of the history that you have left behind on the
Mhm.
blockchain. The blockchain is open for anyone to analyze, and they can see who you receive money from, who you sent money to. And so with Monero, that's not possible, at least in theory, and pretty much all of the time in practice as well. Um, so, nobody can tell when somebody sent you money. Nobody can tell when you send money to somebody else. And that's, a lot of people value that, um, to a large degree. I mean, for the same reason you would use DuckDuckGo, for the same reason you would use a VPN.
Mhm.
You don't want your financial activity to be visible on the blockchain.
Yeah, and
Um,
I can see why you specifically value that as well, because that's why you value Bitcoin, because it's, really just hones in on the whole decentralized aspect of it, because, I
yeah,
agree, like
actually, so
that's what
I
really
mean, I
gives
kind
it
of got
the
into
value.
Monero more because the other half of it was in their white paper. They had a new proof of work algorithm that they proposed would be able to, you know, be mined with the CPU into an eternity, which it wasn't. I mean, they had to tweak it, and but it's still, you mine Monero with your CPU. You don't need, you really can't use a graphics card, let alone an ASIC or anything. So that kind of, at least in some respects, decentralizes the coin more. And I got into it when I was mining all kinds of stuff. So that was really what drew me in. And I participated, like I made some wallet front ends and stuff, and some miner front ends. So you didn't have to use the terminal. You could just like click a button and start mining. So I mean, I remained a part of the community on IRC and on Reddit and other places as well.
Yeah, it sounds like with the CPU mining, it also makes it more accessible because, you know, all computers obviously have a computer, but, most computers will have, integrated graphics cards and stuff like that. So you'd have to actually, build a computer with a solid graphics card, to mine most
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to mine with a graphics card, then you don't just have, I mean, you could just have one, but I think, most people that do it buy a motherboard and a CPU, and then they plug like 6 graphics cards into one motherboard.
Oh, I didn't know that you could run multiple into it. That's crazy.
And there's like big farms where they probably have 6 or 12 GPUs on every motherboard, and they have thousands of GPUs on racks. So
yeah. So besides mining, do you also like buy cryptocurrencies? And if so, like what crypto marketplace do you use?
Yeah, I do. Not so much lately, but I use Coinbase. I use Kraken. I use TradeOgre because they're the only exchange that lists Monero, at least the only like exchange that I will use that lists Monero. And I use a couple other, I use KuCoin a little bit. I mean, I've probably used dozens, or maybe
it sounds like you use them all. I've never heard of half of these. Is there a reason why you use so many? Is it because like,
well,
some
like
coins are only listed on some marketplaces?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tradition, like, I mean, going back several years, that is definitely the reason why. And now, for now, I mostly use Coinbase and Kraken and TradeOgre a little bit. I mean, I don't really trade Monero, but I log on and check out how the market looks like.
What do you think about people that use Robinhood to buy and trade cryptocurrencies?
I mean, it's up to them how they want to trade it. I mean, I would not use Robinhood. My little brother uses Robinhood to trade options, which I also think not really a great idea. But I mean, it kind of, I've heard that Robinhood is going to allow you to withdraw your cryptocurrency in the near future.
Yeah, because that's what the main issue is like you're not really owning the cryptocurrency if you can't withdraw it and store it in a digital wallet,
Like, I mean, I get it. Like, if you just want to invest and you don't want to deal with it, like, I mean, that's anyone's prerogative. But I mean, I personally, I got into it because I like to like play with the cryptocurrency and use the network and stuff. So I would definitely encourage people to at least try somewhere where they can, withdraw their coins and send them around and kind of use the system a little bit.
Yeah. So after you buy the cryptocurrencies, how do you store it in that marketplace, or do you like use a wallet? And if so, where's your wallet, and can I get the password?
No, I don't leave much on the exchange. I'm not going to tell you where my wallet is, but I use a hardware wallet, as well as other paper wallets. The hardware wallet that I use is a Ledger. It works really well on Linux and Windows and Android. I have nothing bad to say about Trezor or any other. I mean, I definitely encourage you. Well, if you have, I mean, I don't think it makes sense if you have a few $100 or even maybe, a couple $1,000, like just you probably just as well leave it on the exchange.
Mhm.
It's probably not worth the risk reward. And at this point, I mean, with Coinbase being a public company, maybe I don't know at what dollar value it becomes rational to take your coins off the exchange, if ever. But yes, I don't leave my coins on the exchange. I custody them myself.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. I personally leave my coins on the exchange because I feel like I put them on the hard drive and I would forget it somewhere or something. I'd feel like I, wouldn't be responsible enough to store it on a hard drive. And I heard all these stories of people that invested like early on in Bitcoin, and then they had like
Oh,
all these coins on hard drives and they lost them, or they forgot like the passcode to them or something. And I don't want to be
yeah.
that guy. I can see why people do it both ways. Do you hold any other assets, like stocks or, real estate or anything?
I own my house.
Oh, okay. Oh, you own the
So,
basement.
yes, I
Okay,
own the
nice.
basement.
That's even
I
better
don't
when you
own
own the basement.
yeah, don't own any other real estate. And I used to kind of play around with individual stocks. Um, and I own ETFs now. I own like S&P ETF. Like I feel like,
Oh, okay. Index funds and everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. I have like enough risk exposure in cryptocurrency. So besides that, I just don't try and play around with anything else.
yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. Most of my portfolio is invested into ETFs, index fund, like Vanguard's VTI, and then I have some, money I allocate, towards, higher risk options like cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And I think, and hopefully eventually, cryptos won't actually be seen as an investment, but more actually as, a currency. So what do you think about that? Do you think that crypto should be viewed as an investment or actually just as a currency like a US dollar? Like people don't say I'm investing in the US dollar or something like that.
I mean, maybe some people do.
Yeah, some people, that's true. I shouldn't say nobody does, but yeah.
I think it's both. Um, and I think some people, I think for sure at this point, Bitcoin is both. And I think with the, kind of the adoption of Bitcoin by El Salvador and as well as like companies in the United States
Mhm.
like Bakkt and Strike, and I mean they're trying to use Bitcoin as a payment network, not on the layer one, but on this Lightning network or other layer two networks.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's both. Like but I think the vast majority of the appeal of Bitcoin to like the investor class is that it's not manipulatable, right? It kind of comes back to decentralization,
Mhm.
is that nobody can print more Bitcoin when there's an economic collapse due to, you know, companies being over leveraged on bad real estate
Mhm.
investments or due to a pandemic or whatever. Like, so I think that's the appeal of Bitcoin for sure. And probably the majority of the appeal for Bitcoin. For some of the other networks like Loopring or Nano, or they pitch themselves more as a pure currency. But at the same time, those networks are so small, like the value of all the coins on the network is hundreds of millions or $1 billion. Like
Mhm.
if it was really widely used as a payment network, then kind of by necessity, it would have to be worth a lot more.
Yeah, it would have to be worth
So
even more than what Bitcoin is worth.
maybe, I mean, or if there's many of them, then, but in any case, I mean, it's still, if you believe in it as a currency, then you also kind of necessarily have to believe in it as an investment, right?
Mhm.
So
Now, do you think, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't think or it's really hard to separate the two.
Yeah. Do you think that eventually cryptocurrency will become universally acceptable as a form of payment? At least, in the United States, like, do you think I'll be able to go over to my grocery store and, pick up some bananas with, 0.00005 of a Bitcoin or something?
I think it's getting there already. I mean, I deal with a lot of people around the world, and payments go back and forth in Bitcoin and Ethereum or Monero or whatever. Like, and so that's not at the department store or whatever. It's not at maybe, the mom and pop shop on the corner.
Hmm.
But I think it is already pretty broadly accepted, especially among people who you and I would be dealing with. Like, if it's, somebody who's under 40 years old, um, you probably got like, a 1 in 5 or 1 in 2 chance of being like, yeah, pay me in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So um, I think if you're able to do it at the grocery store, then it'll probably, at least in the near term, end up being more like using, I mean, you already kind of can, like, you can get a Coinbase debit card and spend your crypto via the debit card at wherever you want, right? And there's a lot of those crypto.com
Hmm.
and stuff like that, right? So I think that's probably the more, I mean, that's already, you can spend it anywhere. So I think in the near future, that's kind of the way that it's going to go. But I think if you look at like El Salvador, if there's other countries that kind of come on board with that type of enthusiasm, I guess, then I think you could see direct Bitcoin or whatever payments via your cell phone or whatever happen a lot more broadly in the near future.
Hmm. Now, on the flip side of that coin, do you think that there's any chance that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency will become illegal in the US? Because I know that in other countries it has been banned.
Yeah, I'm a very, uh, I guess, skeptical person in general, so I'm never sure about anything. But I would
Hmm.
say the possibility is very low at this point, that there would be any real abridgment of the right to hold or use cryptocurrency in the United States or anywhere else in kind of the Western world. Um, I mean, if a company like Coinbase goes public and PayPal is custodying cryptocurrency and allowing users to spend cryptocurrency, I just can't imagine that there's going to be support to completely outlaw it.
Hmm. Now, while we're talking about negative things regarding cryptocurrency, what are your thoughts about, Bitcoin mining and like its environmental effects? Like, you understand that, the mining process is terribly inefficient compared to, how regular transactions are facilitated, say on like a credit card.
Yeah, and I'm personally not really a fan of the word inefficient. I think that that's kind of the cost of running the network. And it's not just about the cost in energy per transaction, but it's about, securing the network across the world. Um, and I think a lot of it is kind of overblown, um, in terms of the amount of energy used. Like, I haven't looked at the numbers really recently, but I mean, a couple of years ago, like during the month of November and December, like there was more energy expended, I think, to like display Christmas lights than there was used to secure the Bitcoin network.
Huh.
So like, is that a waste
That's
of
pretty
energy?
interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, or is like playing video games a waste of energy? Like, what's the
No, no,
economic?
don't bring video games into this. We leave that alone, okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I mean, like, what is a waste of energy? Like who decides what is wasteful?
Yeah.
And you,
Just for our listeners, real quick, I did pull up a stat. So according to Harvard Business Review, Bitcoin currently consumes around 100 terawatt hours per year, which is 0.55% of global electricity production, or roughly equivalent to the annual energy draw of small countries like Malaysia or Sweden. So, I mean, it's not nothing, but
It's not nothing. It's a lot
yeah.
of energy. And I think, so besides what I already said about Christmas lights or video games,
Mhm.
like energy is not easy to store. Like there's tons and tons of energy producers. And, if they don't have customers to deliver that energy to, then it just gets dissipated as heat
True.
anyway.
Hmm.
So I think it's hard to say, how much of that energy, like if they're buying excess energy from a hydroelectric producer, like if that energy was just going to go to waste, then it's hard to call it an inefficient use of energy as
True.
well. I think it's a really complicated situation, but I'm not one that considers it a waste or even necessarily inefficient.
Yeah, I'm not either. I also have been hearing about how Bitcoin like mining companies have, or uh, businesses have been like moving their operations to make them more efficient as well and decrease their carbon footprint, such as like moving it to like northern countries like Norway, Sweden, stuff like that, because it's more efficient to cool the computers, and that's one of the biggest costs of energy is the actual cooling of the computers.
Yeah, and at the same time, I know there's a company in Pennsylvania who is now, I think they're a public company, and they're burning coal that is like too poor quality to burn it to generate power for homes and businesses. And they're like burning it up to power Bitcoin miners. So that's like not,
I don't know.
but
Pretty
like,
bad.
I mean, with that being said, that sounds bad, but I guess it's like, I think they got approved to do it because like nobody else wanted to get rid of this waste coal, and
Hmm.
they wanted to get rid of it. So I mean, I don't think it's a simple issue. And I think people try and kind of like portray it as something that is like very black and white, and I don't think that it is. But overall, I would say I don't think it's inefficient or wasteful.
Hmm. Do you think there are any like cryptocurrencies that are actually just bad, like schemes and stuff like that, and maybe should be banned?
I don't know about band, but absolutely. Can I take five, three to
Yeah,
five
yeah.
minute break?
You need 5 minutes? Sure.
Okay.
Let me pause it.
Yeah. Just okay. Cool. Just let me know.
So do you think that there are any cryptocurrencies that are just straight up bad and maybe should be banned?
I don't think that there's any cryptocurrencies that should be banned, probably, because they're all just software, and software is speech, and I don't think that we should be banning speech. But there's plenty of bad cryptocurrencies, and
Mhm.
I do think that of the whatever 10,000 cryptocurrencies that exist right now, probably the vast majority of them are would fit in the bad category.
Mhm. Now, do you think that there's a difference between kind of like meme coins like Doge and like Shiba Inu and like actual like like I don't, for lack of a better word, like scheme coins like BitConnect, or like was it like Safe Moon?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Um, and like for Dogecoin, just to kind of focus on that, like it was launched, I will assume, uh, innocently by an engineer and a graphics designer in that November, December of 2013. I think December. But within a couple of months, there was already like there's this classic text by this guy named Wolong, Wolong,
Mhm.
Wolong, who was like orchestrated this huge pump and dump of Dogecoin in early 2014,
Mhm.
and then he like wrote this paper on how and why he did it, and like even now, like I think
So he wrote a manifesto on
he
it,
did, yeah.
like a true villain.
Yeah, and I think you know I don't know. I don't follow Sheep that closely, but like even if it was launched innocently, like I think both of those coins are kind of like controlled by a very small number of people.
Mm,
And like so if you want to get a few and I like I do think that's a good thing about Doge and probably, you know, Sheep as well, is that like it's super cheap. You know, you can buy 100 coins and play around. And like with Dogecoin, you're basically playing with the same technology that underlines the Bitcoin network. And for Sheep, like it's an ERC20 token on the Ethereum network. Like you can kind of play around with the Ethereum network. Although I guess the token is cheap, but probably moving it around and doing stuff is expensive with gas fees on Ethereum. So I don't think they're bad, but I don't think that they're a good investment
hmm.
or anything more than like a fun toy. And I do think that they're probably pretty kind of manipulated
Yeah.
in
Do you
terms of
think that
like
it basically those types of coins, do you think that affects the images or the image of cryptocurrency as a whole in like a negative view?
to some extent, probably, yeah, but I think it also brings a lot of people in. So I don't think that it's a
Yeah, I think it
net
does too. I
negative.
think it's a little bit hype too. I think I think it
Yeah.
actually draws a lot of people in too because they see the vast fluctuations, so people get excited about it. What do you think about more like kind of I don't want to say I'll say abstract crypto ideas such as mana for like you know Decentraland.
You know, I think that those kind of tokens that represent ownership in a so-called DAO or decentralized autonomous organization are still very new as a kind of idea. Um, and I'm not sure, you know, like Uniswap token is a huge, which is a little bit different, but I mean it's still kind of along the same lines as Mana
Hmm.
in terms of like representing ownership and governance in a nominally decentralized organization. Um, I I think that they're interesting experiments. I think that a lot of them are probably really bad investments.
Yeah,
I think
I would
that
agree with that too.
I actually just tried Decentraland
Oh, okay.
a few days ago, and
Mm.
it's like it's really bad.
Yeah,
Like
it
it's
looks like
not,
RuneScape or something, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like if you took Roblox and made it look ugly, right? And like and it's all buggy. Like so I think, you know, like who wants to own that? Who wants to spend, you know, thousands or millions of dollars to own a piece of that? Apparently a lot of people do, or at least they want to kind of try it out and participate. So I think I would just say I think they're interesting experiments, but I think it's very early, and I'm not sure that there's any really good examples of a decentralized organization.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like, you know, there's potential there, but it just hasn't been executed, you know, properly yet. And it just needs more time. And I'd be skeptic to invest in something like the central land real estate. But I do think it's cool that they're you can trade NFTs there. They have like a marketplace for that as well. And I know that you're kind of into NFTs. So could you maybe explain to our audience like what NFTs are and why you're into them?
Yeah, so NFT just stands for non-fungible token, which is kind of at odds with, I mean, at least nominally, Bitcoin and Ethereum are fungible tokens, which means that any Bitcoin is exchangeable with any other Bitcoin.
Mm,
They're, you know, equal value. You
yeah.
can't distinguish one from the other. Monero people would probably disagree with that and say that, you know, a Bitcoin that came from North Korea is not equal in value because it could be like
Ah.
seized or, you know, put on a blacklist by the United
Mm,
States State Department or something. But just, you know, for, you know, argument's sake,
mm,
these tokens are fungible. And then on the other hand, you have non-fungible tokens, which currently are typically used to represent artwork or ownership of digital artwork. Um, but in theory, it could be used as a digital token that represents ownership of real estate or any other um, digital or physical asset. And then that could be traded on the blockchain or tokenized or lent out or anything else. So that's kind of the 1 minute explanation.
And so you own NFTs, right?
I do, yes.
Now, what type of NFTs do you own? Is it like art? Is it memes? Or
They're
is it
pretty
something
much all
completely different?
art. So I started a company with a couple other people in May. For June, we formed the company officially called Patron, Patrn. And the initial kind of plan was to create a crowdfunding platform for artists where they could post their artwork and set a goal in Ethereum, and then patrons could like their art by sending a certain amount of Ethereum to an address associated with that artwork. And if it reached the goal, then we will mint however many copies of the artwork that was, there was a number of patrons that liked it, and send out a copy of that NFT.
Oh, that's cool. Actually, I understand that. That's a cool concept.
But along the way, we also created some first, just to kind of like learn how the space worked and kind of get our feet wet. We did a series of PFPs called Good Boy Society, which is like, like that is the super common beaten to death 10,000 avatar images that are sold as NFTs now on Solana and Polygon and Ethereum. Like the original one was CryptoPunks in 2017 or 18 on Ethereum, and then also Bored Ape Yacht Club is super popular. But there's like a million derivatives of these like 10,000 series of animal pictures. So that was the first thing we did. And I own some good boys that I bought. And then we also released some more like art series, which we didn't sell. We just gave them away. That's at art101.io. You can see all of them. And so we just gave all these NFTs away, and but people had to pay to mint them. So we gave away, I think, around 14,000 of these NFTs over the past few months. And we didn't charge any money for them, but just due to transaction fees on the Ethereum network, people paid, I think, well over $1 million to mint these NFTs, and then they trade them on OpenSea. So I have some of those as well, and then I just been involved in different NFT communities. So I bought some NFTs from different people, and now our like actual crowdfunding platform is live at patron.me. So I've supported some of the artists there as well. So I probably have like 100 NFTs or something now that are all like artwork related. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the concept of NFTs because I feel like it makes investing in things such as art, a lot more accessible to the general population. I feel like historically, like most people they haven't been able to, attend art auctions and stuff like that to really you see art as an asset. It's been typically reserved for the top 1%, and that's the whole thing about, art. You're not buying the paper, you're buying the actual art itself. You're not buying the medium necessarily, and I think that's what NFTs really hone in on.
Right. Yeah. You're really buying the provenance, right? Like you're buying, when you buy at an auction, like it's all recorded legally, and you're buying the ownership rights.
Exactly. And it's actually better verification than buying at an art auction, because you might be able to fake like a little paper slip or something like that, but you can't, fake the NFTs.
Right.
You're always going to be able to say, I
think,
have the original one.
In addition to your point about, on the buyer side, we're really trying to support artists as well. Like,
yeah, especially with
you
the
know,
crowdfunding.
like artists in the kind of traditional world, like, you know, you go to a gallery, and when artists sell their work at a gallery, they typically will get half of the money from the sale,
Hmm.
and the gallery takes the other half, which I mean, I guess is, you know, the gallery has to pay for like rent and other
Yeah.
expenses, so maybe that's reasonable. But yeah, so I mean, we are like kind of a digital gallery where people can support artists, and when their work is kind of produced, then we end up taking like a 2.5% fee. It's
Well, that's like
much more
nothing. That's really small. Yeah.
compared to 50%.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think it can be beneficial to both the artists and the collectors as well.
Hmm.
And I just think, you know, personally, a year ago, I was probably in kind of the boomer mindset, like, oh, NFTs are stupid. I'll just right click and save it, blah, 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 right? But
Yeah.
I mean, after, you know, being around it a lot and thinking about it a lot, I really just think that the way the world is moving, you know, if you look at like the amount of time people spend on the digital world compared to the real world over the last 30 years, like the trend is in an obvious direction, right?
Hmm.
And I mean,
Definitely. Yeah.
so I think, you know, digitization of ownership with respect to artworks or anything else is going to be important in the future.
Yeah, and this isn't just like some like niche thing that only a few people or artists are doing, but there are actually a lot of artists doing this and making money off of like selling NFTs. I was actually recently at like just a Halloween party, and there were a lot of creative people there, and I was just talking to one of the people there, and he was saying that he's an artist that basically he just like makes and sells these tiny little um kind of like outside, environmental like drawings and everything like that, and he sells them and he makes money just by creating and selling NFTs. So it's a real thing that people are using. It's not just an
Yeah.
idea
I mean,
anymore. It's a real thing. Yeah.
OpenSea does like, I don't know, $500 million of volume a month. I think they were over a billion for a couple of months recently.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of people participating and a lot of money moving around.
Yeah, have you heard of Bit Redemption by any chance?
I haven't heard of that.
Oh, okay. This is interesting. So you've heard about, BitConnect, and for people that don't know, BitConnect was like this coin that was manipulated, and there was like this whole meme about it with one of the investors named Carlos, and his whole thing was going Bitcoin hacked like that, and later on it came out that it was more or less a scheme. So now he wants to do kind of a redemption arc. So what he partnered up with this other person, and they're actually minting that whole meme, the whole BitConnect meme of him shouting and all that whole speech into little segments, and actually selling those individually as NFT tokens.
Yeah,
So it's kind of
I'm
coming
looking. I'm
full.
looking at it on
Are
OpenSea
you
right
really?
now. Yeah. Yeah, so far 0 ETH volume traded, but good luck to Carlos, I
Yeah, I just thought that was
guess.
interesting. And
Yeah,
maybe this whole thing will come out as a scheme too. And so he'll have to have
yeah.
a bit redemption for his bit
He seemed
redemption.
like, I mean, he seemed like a good guy who just is like paid to be there, but who
Yeah,
knows?
that's what I was getting from it too. And that's kind of what he's going for, is that he wasn't actually like a part of the organization. He was more or less an investor, and he didn't really understand what was going on behind the scenes. But I just thought it was interesting, more or less.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about the subreddit and your involvement with that as a moderator now. So what do you do as a moderator? Like, do you have specific roles assigned, or do you guys all kind of have like
We
the
do.
same job?
I mean, no, I mean, we all definitely try to be available to help with anything that needs helping with, but we definitely have some specific roles that everyone generally tries to uh, take care of. And I mean, there's certain people who develop and run certain bots. that help with moderation, and there's some people who tend to just be more active in the subreddit and going through the mod queue, where like things get, put when they're reported or if they get flagged by automod. And also, at this point, I run a bot, like the price ticker bot that works on old Reddit, and I kind of try to do my part in mod mail. We get a ton of mail, and also I try and set up the AMAs on the subreddit. We have one guy who basically just runs the Discord and coordinates that aspect of it. Yeah, so we're pretty segmented, I would say, kind of have our specific roles.
So you're saying you set up the AMAs. So what do you do by setting up the AMAs? Like you talk to the person that wants to do the AMA and everything, or how does that work?
Yeah, just kind of filter them and then set up coordinate dates and then make sure that they get stickied and that they have, that they're verified before they come on. And to some extent try and go find people, but for the most part, let people come to us. Yeah, we've been trying to do more of that, not super successfully, but we have had some more in the last couple of months.
Have you had a favorite AMA?
I'm trying to think. I always try and ask questions just to be like the good student who raises their hand in
Yeah.
seminar, but
yeah, everyone likes that.
I think honestly, we have another guy who is coordinating with Reddit to do the Reddit talk. They have the Reddit talk rollouts. And Reddit kind of helped arrange an AMA on Reddit talk with Kevin O'Leary just a few days ago, the guy from Shark Tank. And
okay. Is he the bald one, or which one is that?
Yeah, he's the bald one. He's a software guy.
I know you're talking
and
about.
I was like a little bit skeptical. I don't know, like I just saw the comments from the people in the subreddit. Like I didn't know a lot about him, and the comments were all generally skewed very negative in terms of like what to expect.
Yeah.
But I thought he was like pretty reasonable, and he was a little bit, for my taste, a little shilling on Solana and like Polygon, but overall I thought he was really good and reasonable, and kind of was a nice bridge between the crypto world and the traditional finance world that we haven't really had in the past.
Yeah, I'll have to look through that AMA. He does. I can see why he was so polarizing on the subreddit. Just he seems like a nice guy, but the way he comes across sometimes can, I think, be kind of like rash.
Yeah, he's a little like overbearing. Like I just remember from his AMA, he said he's like, let me give you an example. A lot of times like that's the kind of way he direct. Like he's very like forceful in the way he directs the conversation, but he was, I thought he was pretty good. And we also had Eric Voorhees on with some MetaMask people, or not MetaMask, Shapeshift people, like last month, and they were really good as well to talk about decentralized organizations, because supposedly Shapeshift is in the process of becoming a DAO, I think, located in Wyoming. But they came on to talk about their shift from a traditional corporation into a DAO. So that was really interesting. And he's like a pioneer in the Bitcoin space, so it's cool to have him on as well.
Cool. How did you actually go about becoming a moderator for Cryptocurrency?
So actually, I was invited to come on, I think in like the middle of 2016, to create the price ticker that still runs if you go to old Reddit, which at the time in 2016 was the only Reddit. I don't think new Reddit was out yet. So I was invited to come on and develop that bot. which like it shows the top 10 cryptocurrencies and what the price of each cryptocurrency is in the banner. Like if you go to old.reddit.com/r/cryptocurrency, you can see it. And I mean, for a while, that was all that I did. Was like I ran that bot, and then I ran another bot that did some moderation stuff that somebody else has taken over now and does a much more better job at keeping it updated and adding new features to it. But yeah, I was invited on to add that, and then I just was doing that, and eventually I started, helping out in mod mail. I'm generally a pretty professional person, so I can respond to angry people in mod mail or just mute them.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, you're actually really good about responding promptly.
We try. We get a lot, but we try.
Yeah. So what posts do you like / dislike seeing on your subreddit? Like, are there any that you just see like all the time and that you're just kind of like sick of seeing? And then are there any that like particularly catch your eye?
I mean, honestly, I always liked all of the meme posts.
My guy.
Which are now, they're all banned from the subreddit for like the last 2 years, maybe. I don't know. Not 2 years, maybe a year, because it was after moons came out. Like the introduction of the moon system has been like a huge shift in how the subreddit is run in terms of moderation, as well as what type of content gets submitted. But I
Can
mean,
you explain the moon system? Because I'm actually very confused by that. Not gonna lie.
It's pretty confusing. Basically, it's an Ethereum token that does not run on the main network. It runs on the test network, more or less. So in theory, it should be valueless. Like you can play around on Ethereum testnet or Bitcoin testnet and get free Bitcoins or free Ethereum.
Yeah.
Right? But the Reddit community points tokens started on the Rinkeby testnet for Ethereum as an ERC20 token, which is like BAT or SHIB. And then they migrated to now be on this Arbitrum network that Reddit runs, but it still runs on the Rinkeby testnet. But basically, it's like every upvote you get a certain number of moons for that upvote at the end of the month. And Reddit distributes them to a vault, they call it, which is basically an Ethereum address that's associated with your Reddit account. And people have figured out how to kind of like bridge these tokens to different networks. And so they do have some monetary value at this point. But their real purpose is supposed to be for subreddit governance. Like it's supposed to be like to provide the voting weight for a decentralized organization, and that the subreddit itself should operate like a decentralized organization, which is difficult to transition to. And I think that a lot of the users want us to kind of move faster with that transition. And I'm not sure that most of the moderators or Reddit themselves is really ready to move at the same speed that a lot of users want to. And it's tough. I mean, like, when you want to make the whole system decentralized and vote on every single decision, like that just adds a ton of work, like, to people who are, basically volunteering their time. Like people are like, oh, well, now you're getting paid in moons. And like generally we were all doing this before we got paid in moons. And most of us are not doing anything with the moons except for voting. So it's made things a lot more complicated, and also introduced, a lot of farming, as people like to call it, where people want to post with multiple accounts and try and do whatever they can to get as many upvotes as possible.
Yeah, and I feel like that would possibly make your job more difficult because you kind of have to weed out the farmers too.
It certainly does, but I mean, it's also kind of, I think, incentivized moderators to do more on the subreddit and incentivize more people who want to become moderators. So we've been able to add some really good people over the last year to help out. So I think overall it's a net good for the subreddit. But yeah, it's certainly been a lot of work and a kind of tricky situation to navigate over the last 18 months or whatever.
Now, before we digress, you're saying that you really like the memes before, but so what type of posts do you dislike?
I guess like I guess at this point it's just like the reposts, like, which I hate to say that because like Reddit is the land of reposts, and like people are like, oh, you should like repost that. But I mean, it gets tiring to see the same thing posted over and over again. But at the same time, I do understand like we're basically kind of a general audience subreddit, and we add, I don't know, like, a lot of days we add like 10,000 new members. So like these are people coming into the space for the first time, and so like for them it's new to them. So
yeah,
even if
that's a
dislike
lot
it,
of
like,
members, 10,000 every day. That's crazy. I'm guessing like sometimes, when there's a lot of news about crypto, there's probably even more than that coming on.
I think, yeah, I mean, in the last year, I think we've added over 2 or 3 million new members.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
yeah, how have you seen like the r/cryptocurrency like subreddit change over the years that you've been a moderator there?
I mean, like when I first started participating, which was like 2014, it was pretty much a ghost town, and like there was not a lot of moderation. It's like there's a lot of posts about Litecoin and some about like barbecue coin, like
Barbecue
taco
coin?
coin.
Taco coin? What?
Yeah. So it's gone from that to being like a pretty mainstream subreddit where we're now getting like brigaded by GME people who are pumping their pump and dump coins, and like we have like tons of new people who are looking for advice and looking for, basic information. So it's kind of gone from like nerds and crypto anarchists and crazy people to, I guess, more or less kind of your general cross section of Reddit to some degree.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Do you moderate for any other subreddits?
I do, not super actively, but I'm a mod at a couple other like tiny coin subreddits that I've been a mod at since like 2014 or 15, and Monero, and a Monero meme subreddit called Monero. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're basically all like crypto related.
Are there any like subreddits that you're just like a big fan of, or that you like recommend to any of the guests, or for me to possibly do an interview for?
That tend to be on the larger side.
Yeah, either.
Yeah, I guess I like I mean, I'm kind of a nerd, so I like our chemistry and our crystal growing. Actually, I think that a pretty cool subreddit that is like tangential to the whole NFT space is our procedural generation. I'm somewhat of a fan of roguelike video games, so I like our roguelike or our roguelike dev, which is like procedural generation video games. And then there's also our procedural generation, which is like not necessarily related to video games, but just generating artwork or terrain or other kinds of stuff mathematically, I don't know. I like all kinds of Reddits.
Yeah, those are dope. Anyways, our interview has been going on for about an hour, so I'm gonna cut it pretty soon. Do you have anything that you want to plug, like your business or your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I guess check out patron.me. That's patrn.me. If you're interested in NFTs, or if you're just interested in supporting artists in a new way, you can go on there and see, we're kind of in soft launch mode, but we're live. So you can check out the artwork that's being posted, and if there's anything that you like, you can, send the artist a like and see if you get a copy of it minted.
Okay, great. Well, anyways, John, thank you so much for the interview. It could not have gone any better. I feel like I learned so much about cryptocurrency, and I feel like I learned about how much I don't know about it. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
very
good.
humbled right
Yeah.
now. Anyways, thanks again. You have a good rest of your night, okay? Talk to you
Cool.
soon.
Thank you, Owen.
All right, bye.
Bye.